Now, when we look at from a transaction perspective, it is important to note that Islamic finance is not restricted to any particular religion. Anyone, regardless of his religious beliefs, is welcome into Islamic finance, can enter into Islamic transactions. And when we look at corporates, now the corporates, companies, they do not have any religion. It is their operations which determine whether they are Sharia compliant or not. And those criteria have been given to us by the scholars, set out as per the IOF guidelines. And another important aspect is that Islamic finance focuses on transaction rather than counterparties. Unless and until the transaction relates to an equity shares of a particular company, then obviously that company needs to be Sharia compliant. And because of this particular aspect, a lot of companies which are not Islamic, I'm not talking about financial institutions here, I'm talking about companies like real estate. There are a lot of real estate companies which have issued sukuk. These are not Sharia compliant companies by nature because their operations, when you look at the business activities, their business activities may be Sharia compliant, but their financial ratios are not because they have got heavy debt element on that. But they have been able to issue sukuk because Islamic finance more looks at the transaction rather than the counterparty. And lastly, conventional companies can participate in Islamic transactions subject to their Sharia compliant. Now let's look at the criteria for Sharia compliance for the financial transactions. When you're doing a transaction, you are doing a transaction for a particular purpose. What is your purpose? Is your purpose Sharia compliant? For example, if you are trying to set up a business which is non-Sharia compliant, your Sharia compliance aspect fails there. But if you are trying to set up a project, the operations of which are going to be Sharia compliant, regardless whether you are a conventional or an Islamic entity, that basically that is going to work. Then the second aspect is the Sharia compliance. Now here the Sharia compliance is not, we're not looking at the purpose. At the first stage we have determined that the purpose has been Sharia compliant. Here we are talking about the Sharia compliance of the underlying asset, the underlying project, and what are the mechanisms you are using to execute that transaction. The third element is the legal documentation. Now the legal documentation needs to capture the purpose and the Sharia compliant appropriately. Now when we look at the Sharia scholars consider all of the above before they approve any transaction as Sharia compliant.